Hello and thanks for checking out ChartGuys.com. We're proud to be one of the most successful technical analysis communities online, teaching you the skills to become a more confident, effective, and informed trader. Join our community of hundreds of analysts worldwide working together to learn the charts, generate profit, and achieve financial independence. For access to daily live chart analysis and market coverage, a thriving chat community, along with dozens of hours of exclusive educational materials. We look forward to seeing you. Let's check out some charts. Howdy crypto friends, hope you're doing well. Currently outside in Austin it's 100 degrees, but there's a nice little breeze and a fan going. So we're going to hear some birds in the background. This is pretty much how I ideally want to be able to do what I do, and just waiting for some universal Wi-Fi where I can do this in the middle of the woods, and that would be pretty cool. So we're going to be looking at some altcoins along with our usual Bitcoin and Ethereum. We're going to look at ICXADA, EOS, IoT, NEO, ZRX, and NANO, and these are voted on by members. So we're going to look at the weekly time frames as we're about to close out the weekly candlesticks, and then we will zoom in to daily time frames and take it from there. So as we know on Bitcoin, it's all about this weekly equilibrium pattern that is currently forming up. In order for the bulls to have a fair shot and an even playing field on an attempt at breaking this, we need to set a lower high in the low 7,000 range, and we are not there yet. The high of this move is 6,890. So if that is as far as the bulls can muster this move, then they're going to be at a disadvantage, and the bears will continue to have favor as they have had favor for a bunch of months at this point. So we still have to see follow through on the daily time frame. If we don't, the odds of a bear break down below 5,700 are more likely than not. So because the bulls have not gotten to 7,200-ish, then that's the scenario. The bears have favor at this point. If the bulls can get up to 7,200, we're going to shift the odds. The odds are still going to stay in favor of the bears because they have the overall long-term trend over the past 8 months or so, but the odds for the bulls are going to significantly increase, and we'll call it perhaps, this is just me estimating, but maybe a 40%, 45% chance that we could break bullish if we get another leg up to the low 7,000 range. If we do not, the odds of a bear break are probably about 75, 80% at this point. So the daily time frame is tightening up. I've been saying in these videos how we're watching for the price to stay within the range of the big large candlestick from that BitMEX day, and we are now on day number 4 within that range. People in the previous video asked, why would I look at this level? Isn't it artificial? Isn't it manipulation? Yes, but if you look around the Twitter space, there are people trading off of this. Traders use this level. What other resistance are we going to use nearby? There's nothing nearby. So I know of a trader that has a following of however many thousands of people, tens of thousands of people, and they entered a bearish trade earlier this morning with that level as their stop loss. So traders are using that level, so we should absolutely be using that level as well. So what we're looking at is our high, our low of the pullback. We have a lower high. If this is as much pullback we see while we're staying within this tightening range, then the bulls have favor on the daily time frame because that's not much of a pullback at all, and then we'll look for continuation. I would say a normal equilibrium within this pattern, we would have seen a pullback down to about 6,450 or so. So again, it's the opposite scenario of the weekly. Right now, the weekly, the bulls have not seen enough of a bounce, so the equilibrium favors the bears. And in this instance, the bears have not seen enough of a pullback, so the equilibrium favors the bulls. The bulls are going to try and see a leg up and see a bullish cross of these exponential moving averages, and that is going to be the goal of the bulls. So a little bit shorter term here on the 4-hour time frame. As soon as we saw this pullback and a loss of this higher low on the 4-hour chart, we said, all right, most likely we're going to see a 4-hour equilibrium today because of the range that we had within this space. So right now, that's what we have. We have the high, the low of the dump, a lower high, and a little bit of a higher low. So you can see things are tightening up. The tightest range that we're watching right now is 66.30 up to 67.26. If we break 66.30, we look down at our next level of 65.72. If we get a bull break of 67.26, we look up to 67.73 and 67.90. I would probably just default to the 67.90 resistance because they're so close to each other. That's what I would be using. So at this point, the tightening range is going to give us some clarity on the short-term action into tonight, and how we're going to start this next week is going to be dictated by how this range breaks on the 4-hour time frame. In the past couple of days, we have seen bear breaks that have not resulted in follow-through. We've seen the bulls buy the dips on those bear breaks. We haven't seen that in a long time, and if we have to be aware that that's a potential scenario as well. Even if we do break bearish, if we see a long lower wick and bulls turning things around, then we can tell ourselves, all right, bulls are still sticking around. They're not giving up on this pattern, and they are continuing to buy the dips. So that's what we're keeping an eye on. Another thing to mention is that there was a bullish bet in the futures, I believe a $5 million bet, that is worth noting. They were betting on the price to go to 10,000 in September and December. There were a couple bets made, and you have to keep in mind, though, we cannot assume. We can say it's most likely they want the price to go up, but that could be someone, for all we know, with a $50 million short position, and they're taking out these futures contracts for $5 million, 10% of their huge bearish position, just as a hedge. So you have to always keep that in mind. It's not always, straight up on the surface, and it's the same way in the stock market. We often see big options orders placed, but while it looks like it's in one direction, it absolutely could be hedging in the opposite direction. So have to keep that in mind. Got the breeze picking up here. Hope you guys can still hear me. But all about this 4-hour time frame here for Bitcoin. Ethereum continues to be weak. Look at this weekly chart. Bounce is not seeing any follow through. Bullish reversal hammer, long lower wick. Didn't do anything for the bulls. Inside bar is about to form. So bulls don't have a lot to be hoping for in the short term for Ethereum. We've got a couple support levels, a couple resistance levels, and we're still in a tightening range from that original 4 days of the bounce. We hit our low, we hit the high of the bounce 4 days later, and here we are tightening still within it. So support is 259.11 followed by 250.28, and resistance we have a few levels here of 283.38, 299, and then all the way up to the top of the bounce of 322.16. So tightening range still favoring the bears. The burden of proof is on the bulls, whereas if we look at the Bitcoin daily chart, we've been in a bullish uptrend now for a couple of weeks at this point. Completely different scenarios on these two different coins. ICXUSD. So again, when I'm looking at the USD pairing, the first thing I'm doing is comparing who's stronger than Bitcoin and who's weaker than Bitcoin. And that's what we need to know first things first. So the weekly time frame for ICX, bullish reversal, doji, and some follow through. So this is a great sign that the bounce is underway. Again, most of these names are not going to be close to changing any trends anytime soon. Anything under 185 is a lower high. So in order to change these weekly trends, most names are going to have to bounce and set a lower high, then pull back and form the higher low, and then change the trend. Very unlikely to change the trend in a V-shaped recovery from where we stand right now on this bounce. So the daily time frame for ICX, beautiful follow through. And I can see right now that we very clearly are seeing more strength than Bitcoin. And I can say that because of the conviction of the follow through, and most notably, the biggest reason is the increasing bull volume. That is very notable, and we're seeing some nice strength. On any consolidation, a pullback above 54 will give us a higher low. And in terms of resistance, it's 894, the top of this move so far, and then an upper wick here of 1013 as the next resistance level. Overall, pretty solid bounce. And the question is going to be, how much follow through do we get? So just as a practice, when we lose the daily uptrend on a stock or a crypto that is in a weekly downtrend, lose the daily uptrend, then we say, all right, our lower high on the weekly has been set, and we need to pull back and try to form that higher low. So we're watching the daily uptrend for a signal of when our weekly lower high has been set. But because of the follow-through bounce we've seen, the odds that we pull back and consolidate and form a higher low, keeping the daily uptrend, at least for now, is more likely than not. Again, especially compared to the volume, or because of the volume, I should say. So ICX, stronger than Bitcoin. ADA-USD, weaker than Bitcoin. I can already see on the weekly time frame it's more in line with Ethereum. Inside bar, no follow-through of the bullish candlestick, close to all-time lows, at least as far as being listed here on, I believe this is Binance that we're looking at right now. So checking out the daily time frame, it's very similar to Ethereum. Low, high, higher low attempt. That's down at 8.6. So 8.6 is the higher low. I've got resistance at 10.2 and then up to 11.25. So there's right now we're pretty much being split. Names that are similar to Bitcoin, names that are similar to ETH. And so far we've got one of each. ADA, USD is very similar to ETH. The exponential resistance is continuing to reject the price. The bulls are not seeing any kind of follow through, not seeing a trend change. We're in a downtrend on the daily and the weekly time frame. So let's just move over ICX over here. Uptrend on the daily chart for these two, downtrend on the daily chart for these two. EOS USD in line with Ethereum, but a little bit stronger. So middle of the road, we'll call it. We're not confirming the bullish reversal candlestick of last week. The daily time frame is in a tightening range, so definitely more in line with Ethereum because we are not in an uptrend. Low, high, our higher low and lower high was the same candlestick here. That can happen. And looks like we just formed another lower high right here at 517. So 517 resistance followed by 536, and support anything above 450 will keep the daily higher low. So we have daily higher lows, but we also have lower highs. So we're in an equilibrium on this time frame, similar to the other names we just looked at, not in an uptrend like Bitcoin and ICX. IOTUSD, also an inside bar. Hasn't changed the daily trend yet, but a little bit stronger. Closing in on attempting to break some resistance levels. So low, high of the original move. We've been trading within this for weeks now. Higher low on the daily is 457. Resistance 565, followed by 574. And to change the trend and give us a clear daily uptrend now, we have to break the top of this bounce. So that's going to stay in the category with everybody else, similar to ETH. Both, or I should say all still in a daily downtrend. Have to see follow through. Bulls have to prove themselves. They have not done so yet. You can see the volume is really low, and we're coming to a flex point where we're going to see a volume spike and either a loss of the daily higher lows or a break of the lower highs for some follow through. NEOUSD also still weak. So we can see now the majority of altcoins are in line with ETH and weaker than Bitcoin. The daily chart, we have a tightening range. We do not have an uptrend. We have exponential resistances, high, low, lower high. You know the routine. Higher low here is 1581, followed by 1368. Resistance, I'm looking up at 1940 and 2098. If I wanted to do some really detailed analysis of these names and compare them who's stronger and who's weaker, I would look and say, what percent move do we need to break the high of the bounce? And that is how I could distinguish who's stronger and who's weaker out of all of these names now that are lumped together similar to ETH. And I can see just right now visually, NEO has a lot more work to do to break the high of the bounce at this point than IoT does, which is much closer. So I can easily say that IoT is much stronger than NEO, although they are in very similar daily patterns. ZRXBTC, so now we're looking at a couple BTC pairings, so lumping them together with the names that we just did in USD is not going to be as beneficial. So ZRXBTC weekly time frame, it's an equilibrium. We have our high, low of the pullback, lower high. Bulls have to hold this one or make that the 9879 support. Currently we're holding 102. So we are still holding that support, but bulls better show up. 6 red weeks in a row, and if we break that level, we then have a very clear weekly downtrend. Bulls have to bounce and make their way back up to about 1.5, which would put us right back in the middle of this equilibrium and have it continue to tighten from here. So bulls' backs are against the wall, very close to a bear break, but we're not there just yet. That's a potential bottom fishing setup. If I were looking at this play and saying, I'm looking for a trade that's low risk and trying to see some bounce here, I would make an entry and then just put a stop below 9879. And oftentimes my previous trading action will indicate whether I do this or not. If I've had a great week, I'm up a lot, I have a lot of profits, maybe I'll be a little bit more aggressive and maybe I'll make this trade with a very low risk and hope to see it work out. If I've had a rough week and I keep getting stopped out and I'm in the red, then I might say, this setup is favoring the bears. I would likely get stopped out. It would be a small loss, but I don't want to rack up another small loss at this point. I'm going to wait for a more clear pattern to set up, and I'll play that one. NANOBTC, huge move. So Nano is the star of the show in the last couple of days. Certainly some fundamental reasons for that. Do your own research. I'm not the fundamental guy, but we're breaking the lower highs here on the weekly time frame. So when we do begin to consolidate, we will look for a higher low, and the confirmation of the weekly trend change will be the higher low and then continuation to a higher high. We have some beautiful volume here, huge follow through on that volume. In the daily time frame, obviously it's in an uptrend. We don't even have to look at it. We broke to see continuation 3 days ago, and the bulls have not looked back in terms of the follow through that they've seen here. So we don't really have a clear daily support anywhere nearby to be looking at, and we know that when we do consolidate on the daily, we will look to establish a higher low. Previous resistance is 3164. Maybe the bulls will try and hold that level, but we can find better support levels on the 4-hour time frame. Very clear stair-step pattern higher with higher lows. So we have support of 4553, 3952, and 3375. So if I'm in a shorter term trade, look at how beautiful this pattern is riding the exponential supports up. I'd probably say to myself, I'm going to exit when the 4-hour uptrend is lost because that's going to give us some daily consolidation. And we've had a really nice 4-hour uptrend because it has not broken bearish really since the bottom here. It's been a really nice slow and steady move higher, riding exponential support. This is the strongest chart that we've looked at, NANOBTC, and I'm sure NANOUSD is the same. So if I had to rank these charts, it would be NANOBTC, then Bitcoin, then ICX, and then a bunch of different little small details with all these other names as to where they stand. IoT was one of the stronger ones, but other than that, they're all very similar with their tightening daily ranges. So that's common practice. If you're trading altcoins, I am not, so I don't do this but once a week when I do these videos. But if you are trading altcoins, this is something you can do. You know, obviously it takes a lot of practice to be able to do it as quickly as I do, but that just took what, 10-15 minutes for me to get an update on 8 coins, be able to stack them, who's strongest, who's weakest, and then I can say to myself, all right, Bitcoin's looking bullish, I'm going to trade this name bullish because it's stronger than Bitcoin. This name's looking bearish, I'm going to trade this name bearish if Bitcoin starts to break down because it is a weaker name. And those are ways to establish which coins to be looking at. So hopefully that was helpful. I hope you guys had a great week. I hope you all continue to do good things out there. Had a really funny Uber driver yesterday, and he was on the right page of saying some really nice, insightful things, so hooked him up with a nice tip. One funny thing that he would do, 3 times on a 8-minute drive, someone would be, you know, pulling out a little bit too far or doing something that normally would not warrant a beep. But this guy would honk his horn, you know, gently and say, be careful, to 3 different people throughout the ride, and I've never seen that before, but it was certainly funny. He deserved a solid tip. He said that people are stingy and haven't been tipping him, so hooked him up. And this is the book yesterday. When I first arrived into Austin, I got here at, you know, 9 or 10 at night. It was late, done traveling, so I decided I wanted to get food delivered. Not many things were open, so I got tacos. And the tacos were delivered, and I sat down on the big fancy couch. And as I was eating my taco, I looked on the couch and saw, or on the table, this book, Austin Breakfast Tacos, and it's the story of the most important taco of the day. And there's everything you could ever want to know about breakfast tacos in Austin. So the stars have aligned for me. Here I am. Appreciate you watching. We'll throw a recycled farm video at the end here, and going to try and see some bats fly out of some bridges and things like that over the coming days, so we'll see what kind of content I can stir up. But I hope you are all well, and we'll see you tomorrow. Have a great day.
Thanks, bro.